Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're tackling a story that's, well, it's equal parts chilling and inspiring.
Definitely a story that stays with you.
We're talking about Aṅgulimāla. Yeah. The name itself is kind of ominous. It means finger garland. Gives you a little shiver,
Or
right?
does.
We're going to be looking at this ancient Buddhist tale. Story about a man who started out as a scholar, became a murderer, and then ultimately found redemption.
Quite the journey.
So we'll be looking at some ancient Buddhist texts that detail this whole story. But, the real question we're exploring today is, can redemption truly erase the impact of our past?
It's a question that has puzzled people for, forever. And I think Aṅgulimāla's story really gives us a way to examine it, to think about it. What's really interesting is how his journey starts not with evil, really. He actually starts with so much promise.
Yeah, exactly. So just imagine you're this brilliant young scholar, right? His name's Ahimsaka, born into this well-respected family. Everyone thinks he's going to do great things.
Seems like he has it all, right?
And then out of nowhere, his teacher, who's actually jealous of his talent, gets him expelled, banished.
Wow.
Talk about a fall from grace.
Total injustice.
How would you react to that?
I can't even imagine. You can almost feel how much despair he must have been in, right?
Totally.
And that's when this wandering ascetic finds him.
Oh, this is where it gets dark.
Yeah, he offers Ahimsaka this path to power, but like a really dark and twisted one.
Yeah. It gets really disturbing here. The ascetic tells him, okay, you have to kill 1,000 people
1,000 people.
and then make a garland out of their fingers. It's a symbol of power, revenge.
Gruesome.
Gruesome is right. Hard to even think about that.
And it speaks volumes about the manipulation going on, the desperation.
Right. So Ahimsaka, who's totally consumed by rage and grief, transforms into this terrifying figure, Aṅgulimāla.
Right.
And he starts terrorizing the whole region with these horrific acts.
Scary to think that someone so promising could just fall into such darkness.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is, the finger garland wasn't just like a metaphor. It was real. A chilling symbol of what he was doing. This weight that he carried, literally for everyone to see. You have to wonder what that does to a person, both the victims and the perpetrator.
Absolutely. That question gets to the heart of what karma is all about. It's like a core idea in Buddhism.
Right.
Every single thing you do, your actions, your thoughts, even your words, they all leave an imprint. They shape what happens to you in the future. So Aṅgulimāla, every time he added a finger to that garland, he wasn't just harming other people. He was also creating all this suffering for himself.
Makes you think, yeah. So this is where the story shifts and the Buddha enters the scene. Picture this. Aṅgulimāla decides he's going to kill the Buddha, wants to make him his 1,000th victim. So he goes after him. But get this, he can't catch him.
Really?
The Buddha just walking calmly. It's almost like brute force is hitting this wall of inner peace.
Wow. I love that image. That encounter is so important, I think. The Buddha is the living embodiment of his own teachings.
Right.
Nonviolence, compassion, inner peace. It's such a stark contrast with the rage and desperation that Aṅgulimāla is feeling.
Right, right. And then you get this pivotal moment of dialogue. The Buddha turns to Aṅgulimāla and says, I have stopped, Aṅgulimāla. You have not. Let that sink in for a minute. What do you think he meant by that?
He's not talking about physical movement, right? It's deeper than that. He's talking about stopping all those harmful thoughts and actions. The Buddha, he's reached this state of peace within himself, while Aṅgulimāla is still stuck in that cycle of violence and suffering.
That's it. And it's those words that trigger something in Aṅgulimāla. He suddenly sees the horror of what he's done, the weight of all the suffering he's caused, like someone's finally holding up a mirror to his soul, and he can't look away.
It's a powerful moment.
Yeah, it really is. And so it brings us to this big question. Can we ever truly escape the consequences of what we've done? Aṅgulimāla, he's overwhelmed with remorse, begs the Buddha for forgiveness. But is that enough? Is forgiveness enough to erase all the pain and trauma he inflicted on others? I think this is where you see how compassionate Buddhist teachings really are. The Buddha knows how awful Aṅgulimāla's crimes were. He knows everything.
Right.
But he still accepts his plea for forgiveness. And then he guides him toward redemption. Can you imagine the strength it takes to forgive someone like that? To see past all that darkness?
It's incredible. And it goes back to that Buddhist belief that Everyone, no matter what they've done, has the potential for enlightenment, even someone as lost as Aṅgulimāla.
The Buddha must have seen something in him, right?
Yeah.
Some spark that even all that violence couldn't completely extinguish.
Yeah. So, Ahimsaka, he lets go of the name Aṅgulimāla, lets go of that whole persona, and he becomes a monk.
Dedicates himself to meditation, mindfulness, tries to erase all that negative karma he built up. But, it makes you wonder, can you really ever escape the consequences of what you've done? Can you really undo the harm? I mean, it's something we all struggle with, right? Making mistakes, hurting others.
It's a tough question. I don't think Aṅgulimāla's story gives us any easy answers. But it does give us a way to think about redemption. What does it really mean?
Right, and the texts talk about his transformation. He starts doing these acts of kindness. That rage and violence that defined him, it's replaced by this gentleness.
Like a complete change.
Yeah, it's almost like watching a caterpillar become a butterfly. It's a total metamorphosis.
Beautiful imagery.
But even with all that, can the villagers, the people he terrorized, can they ever truly see him as anything other than that monster they knew?
It's like, can they see past the scars? And that's where the Buddhist idea of impermanence comes in, right? Everything is always changing, nothing stays the same.
Including ourselves, our identities.
Right. But the question is, can other people accept that change, especially if they've been hurt?
It's hard, right? To reconcile the person standing in front of you with the horrible things they did in the past.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that tension, that struggle between Aṅgulimāla's internal change and the villagers' inability to let go of the past, it leads to a really tragic end.
Doesn't sound good.
It's not.
Yeah.
So, despite all those years of trying to make amends, some villagers, they're still filled with anger and fear. They attach Aṅgulimāla and they kill him.
Oh, wow.
It just shows that the path to redemption is never easy. Those wounds from the past, they can run really deep.
Makes you think about Shakespearean tragedies, all that violence, all that injustice. It's like an echo of what happened to Ahimsaka at the beginning of his story.
Right, full circle. But then the story takes this unexpected turn, something that goes beyond the physical world, the material world.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Even though he was killed, the Buddha declared that Aṅgulimāla had achieved
Arahantship.
enlightenment before he died.
That's amazing. So even though he met a violent end, he had already reached this level of inner peace, a liberation that goes beyond what happens in the physical world.
Exactly. It reminds us that true enlightenment, it's not about what's happening externally. It's about an internal transformation, a shift in your consciousness.
Deep stuff.
Mhm.
And that brings us to the core of Aṅgulimāla's story. It's not just good versus evil. It's so much more complex than that. It's about what it means to be human, the potential for both darkness and incredible transformation.
And it reminds us that even in the face of unimaginable suffering, there's always the possibility of redemption.
Always hope.
But it also forces us to confront the lasting effects of our actions and the challenges of forgiveness, both for ourselves and for others.
Wow, so we've talked about a lot, starting with this promising scholar, then falling into manipulation, then violence, and the power of forgiveness.
It's quite a journey, Aṅgulimāla's story.
Definitely a roller coaster. But what can we, sitting here today, learn from this? It's an ancient tale. What can we take from it and apply to our own lives? I think for me, it's just this powerful reminder that no one is beyond redemption, Everyone, even someone who's done terrible things, can change. It's a message of hope. It reminds us to look deeper, beyond what we see on the surface.
It really makes you think about compassion, forgiveness too, right? The Buddha could have just rejected Aṅgulimāla, focused on his past.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He embraced him, offered him guidance, a way to heal. I mean, how often do we hold on to anger, resentment?
It's hard to let go sometimes. Forgiveness, it's tough. It doesn't mean you're saying what someone did was okay, but it's about recognizing that people can change. And it's about breaking free from that cycle of pain. It's something to think about in how you treat others and even how you treat yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And Aṅgulimāla's dedication to mindfulness and meditation, that stands out too. It wasn't a quick fix. It was a practice, something he did to confront his own darkness and create a new way of being.
How much does mindfulness play a role in our lives, you think? I mean, how can we use it to break free from those negative patterns and find some peace? It's a great point. And connected to that is taking responsibility for what you've done. Aṅgulimāla didn't run from his past. He owned it, admitted the harm he caused. And he dedicated his life to making amends. I think there's a powerful lesson there about accountability and trying to right your wrongs.
Right. So we started by asking if redemption can truly erase the impact of our actions. And Aṅgulimāla's story, it doesn't really give a simple yes or no answer. He found enlightenment, but his past still had this huge effect on him, led to his death even.
Right. I think what's interesting is that it shows how complex things are, the human experience. You can change, you can find peace, but you can't just erase everything you've done. It makes you think.
It does. So, as we finish up our deep dive into Aṅgulimāla's story, I want to leave you with this. If even Aṅgulimāla could find enlightenment, what does that say about our own potential? And knowing that even someone who's reached that level of peace can still be hurt, be a victim of violence, what does that tell us about the path to liberation? It's something to think about as we navigate our own lives, with all the complexities and challenges.
A lot to ponder.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.